What's good, y'all? rlybeats here, and today we are back with another episode of Melody Mondays, and today we're going to be talking about how to make a Juice WRLD sad guitar melody. I just want to say a big thank you to the channel members displayed on screen right now. If you want to become a channel member and gain access to exclusive perks, press the join button down below. And as well, if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. Now let's get right into it. So when making these melodies, you do want to start out with your bass notes. So I start out with mine. I have a 1-7-5-6 progression. The reason this progression works so well is because the 7 resolves into the 5, and because the 6 resolves back into the 1. So it loops really nicely. As well, I'm using the Electric Sunburst Deluxe sound bank from Contact. And in this sound bank, there are some notes you can add from B3 to G sharp 3. And these notes will add different modulations and effects to the guitar. And so I just added these here at the end of it, just to give the guitar a bit more of a realistic feel. And oftentimes I use the A3 and G sharp 3 to kind of emulate a string sliding sound. It's very subtle, but it's there. And so it really provides a sense of realism to the guitar that can be really important with these kinds of melodies. So a really important thing to do with these melodies is to use multiple instances of your guitar VST or sound bank. The reason you'll want to do this is to add a bit of realism to your guitar. So a guitar can't necessarily play 12 notes at a single time, whereas a piano can. So in those instances when there's a lot of guitar sounds going on, there will be multiple guitars playing each of the sections. So from there you'll want to add a top line. It's really important to leave some space, and I'll explain why in just a bit. So I left some space here and a little bit here as well. And something that I did here was I used notes that were a whole step apart. And the reason I did this was because notes that are spaced a whole step apart oftentimes sound sad together. And pretty much a whole step is just the space between two notes, and it's made up of 2 half steps. And a half step is just the next note on the keyboard, and a whole step would be the note after that. And another really important thing to do when you're making your top line is to keep it fairly repetitive. So you'll see here I have this little phrasing repeating here throughout, and then on the 4th bar and the 8th bar I have a little bit here that differs each time. So the reason we wanted to leave some empty space in the top line was for a counter melody. The counter melody is filling up that space and using it to the fullest it can, while also providing some extra zest and flavor to the melody. And as well, I'm using that whole step thing I talked about earlier. So from there you'll want to add muted plucks that are just following the bass notes. This gets used in a lot of Juice WRLD beats as part of the pre-chorus to build anticipation up into the chorus, as well as it gets used for texturing. So from here you'll want to add some kind of accent guitar sounds. For me, I just use the flageolet option in Electric Sunburst Deluxe, and you'll want to add the accent guitar sounds to fill out the frequency spectrum of your melody, and I'm adding mine here mainly to fill out the higher end of the frequency spectrum, and also it provides a little bit of character to the melody. And one thing you can do to make sure that your guitar accents aren't taking up too much space in the melody is to have them follow a very simple rhythm. This will help from the accents getting to be too distracting and from detracting from the main melody. So with that being said, it'll add to the melody and not detract, which is what we want. And finally, you'll want to add a bass guitar. Pretty straightforward, just follow the bass notes that you already put down. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bass guitar, but that's what I used. Just any kind of bass can work. A big part of these melodies comes down to mixing and effects. If you're using a VST guitar, you'll definitely want to have a Guitar Rig. There is a free trial version that you can use as well. Guitar Rig will definitely help give you that authentic guitar sound, and it has a lot of great presets within it, and some of which Nick Mira has even used in some of his songs. So for this, I'm just using the Prince in the Rain preset. Honestly, it's one of my favorite presets, especially for Juice WRLD melodies, because it has this nice airy sound to it. Next, you'll want to do a little bit of EQ. So for me, I just boosted the highs a little bit. I cut out some of the frequencies that I didn't really like too much, and I boosted the mids just to give it a fuller sound, and I cut a lot of the sound in the low end just to give room for the bass, but I still wanted to leave some just so it had that low range that's really important for a guitar. And finally, you will want to slap a ton of reverb on there. It's really important in these Juice WRLD kind of melodies. Like you can see here, I turned my wetness way up, and I also added some stereo separation to the reverb just because it sounded nice in my opinion. That's kind of how I mixed most of the guitars. But then the accent guitar sound, I just threw a little bit of a delay on there as well, and I did this just to give it a bit more of an airy sound. Anyways, thank you for watching. This has been another episode of Melody Mondays. I hope to see you next Monday, and again, if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe, that'd be greatly appreciated. And here's the full thing.